You set out to design a simple battalion-scale Napoleonic wargame that captures the nuances of combined armed tactics. But that is no simple task. Hello, fellow wargamers and history buffs. Today I'm going to be doing a review and overview of Eylau 1807 from Sound of Drums Games. This is the first in what they are promising to be a series called The Battles of Napoleon. And so we'll be talking a little bit about the rules and the basics of this particular game, since they've got some more that they're planning on publishing. I did not do a review of this when it originally showed up on my doorstep. This game came out in mid-2024. And as soon as it arrived at my house, the rules that came in the box were already outdated. They'd been superseded by some basically living rules that the company had put out based on feedback they were getting from the players. And then over the course of the last 6 months, there have been some additional changes and updates as the company has been refining the rules. So in January of 2025, when I'm doing this video, everything that I'm going to be referencing rules-wise is based on rule set 1.5, which is the most recent one that the company has released, and the one that they say is going to be the most definitive one for this particular game. The game is a hex encounter game where we have the map set up here for Eylau. Each of the hexes represents about 150 meters from side to side. The infantry are represented as battalions, the cavalry as regiments, and the artillery as batteries. And then there are leader units that represent the various army, corps, and division level commanders. The map has hexes representing clear terrain, woods or forest terrain, villages and hamlets, slopes, hex sides, road networks, and marshes. Infantry units are represented in a battalion scale, and they have two sides for indicating which type of formation they're in. The column formation seen here, and the line formation seen here. The players will flip the units over to signal which formation their infantry are currently using. The first number on the counter represents the size of that battalion. The number represents approximately 100 men for each strength point. The second number indicates the number of movement points available to the unit in that formation. Units in column formation have more movement points than units in line formation. The cavalry and their various types are fully represented in the game. There are cuirassiers and lancers, dragoons, chasseurs à cheval, hussars, and Cossacks. They all have different movements and have different capacities and bonuses in combat. Like the infantry unit, the cavalry unit's strength points are represented on the left side of the counter, and the strength points each represent about 50 troopers. The number on the right is the movement factors available for this unit. When the counter is face up, it represents the cavalry being fresh, and fully able to perform movement and combat. When the counter is inverted, it shows the tired side, and it notes that the cavalry has a slower movement value. The types of artillery present at the battle are represented on the French side by horse guns, field batteries, and on the Russian side by heavy position batteries, horse guns, and light guns. These batteries, when turned in this orientation, show that they are limbered. When the counter is flipped over, it shows the guns in their deployed or unlimbered configuration and formation. The leader counters represent the various personalities leading the troops on the day of battle. Army commanders such as Napoleon and Bennigsen are represented, and for the French there are corps leaders, and then for both the French and the Russians there are division leaders. The army and corps leaders are used to issue orders to divisions or help them change their current orders. Division leaders are used for keeping their formations in command and allowing their battalions or regiments to move, and they can also be used to influence combat roles. One of the key drivers for the game, and one where the players are going to be spending a fair amount of time making decisions, is the order process. This is where each of the different divisions, whether they're cavalry or infantry, are issued a particular order for that hour-long turn. There are 7 orders altogether. Each of them has slightly different variations to them. Obviously, the attack order is one that you're going to be using whenever you're going to be launching some type of attack or you're going to be on the offense. Defend is exactly what it sounds like. You're going to be defending. It gives you a benefit for defending, but you're not going to be able to do any attacking or counterattacking. Hold gives you some benefit for defense, but doesn't allow you to move at all. The movement allows you to move troops, and this is one usually going to be used for moving units around the board to get them in a position to maybe launch an attack or to conduct some sort of defensive position. Strategic move, this is when you're bringing on reinforcements and you need to get them from one side of the map to the other pretty quickly. You'll get a bonus to your movement, but you're not able to really engage in combat in any way at all. Retiring is what it sounds like. It's a way for you to pull your forces out of the line so that way then you can regroup them. Regrouping allows you to restore lost strength points to your units, and this is a way then to sort of repair a division that might have gotten abused after several hours of combat. Each of the orders has a particular cost to it or benefit to it. The number with the plus sign, so in this case +4, that gives you initiative points. Whichever side has the most initiative points at the beginning of the turn is going to be the one that's going to be able to activate first. They'll have a guaranteed first activation. The negative number is an indication of how many fatigue points that particular order is going to subtract from your overall fatigue pool. Obviously, being on the attack is a much more costly, from a fatigue point of view, activity. So if you have the bulk of your army on attack, you're going to be using up a lot of army fatigue points. And if you ever run low or run out of those, you are going to be done for the day and you will have lost the battle. Choosing the appropriate order for each of the divisions is a matter of balancing what you're planning on doing with that particular division during that upcoming hour-long turn, plus sort of managing the economy of your army. So if you, as I said, have everything on a very expensive type of order like attack, you're going to be using up a lot of points. Having units on hold doesn't cost you any army fatigue points, but it doesn't give you any initiative. So you've got this sort of balancing act that you're doing as the army commander issuing your orders. The next big driver of the game are the activation cubes. Most of the scenarios stipulate a certain number of activation cubes for the French side, for the Russian side, and then the number of fire cubes. These then are based on the scenario, are then put into a bag, and then they are randomly drawn. In this case, the French have drawn a activation cube, and the French player is going to assign it to one of his commands. Perhaps at this particular moment in the battle, he feels that having the 1st Dragoon Division activated so that it can launch its attack or get in position to do its attack is the best thing to do. He'll then place the activation cube there and move those units and have them engage in whatever combat is appropriate. When the French player draws another activation cube from the bag, then it's time for him to determine where to place it. He can place this with another division that has not yet activated, or he can activate the 1st Dragoons for a second activation. However, if he does so, it will be with slightly diminished results. The first activation allows the units to move without any penalty cost. A second activation during the turn is going to cost any infantry and artillery 1 movement point, and any cavalry units 2 movement points. A third activation of the same formation is going to yield somewhat lesser results, where infantry and artillery have 2 movement points fewer and cavalry 4 movement points less. When the fire cube is activated, a simultaneous fire phase will take place where all units that are capable of shooting from both sides will initiate combat from one side of the battlefield to the other. This is typically where your artillery is firing from a distance, and then any adjacent infantry are firing at targets nearby. The random drawing of the command cubes is what provides a certain amount of friction in the game. If any one player gets 3 cubes in a row, the other player will then have an opportunity to have their cube come up. But what usually happens is a player might go once or twice, and then the other player goes. And so because it's random, you're not sure when you're going to get your cube, and you may or may not get it when you want it. Then the other choice that you have is which formation do you activate. So these are the types of choices that the players are making as their cubes are drawn and as the game proceeds. And so this is where the fun and the challenge of the game is, with knowing where you're going to allocate your cube, what you're going to activate, and perhaps how many times you're going to activate them. The actual gameplay itself is very familiar to anybody who has played a Napoleonic's game. Your units are moving, they're initiating attacks, combat is calculated and results are applied, losses are applied, units retreat. If cavalry charges happen, infantry have the ability to form square. Cavalry units have an opportunity to reaction charge. So many of the elements that we're familiar with from other Napoleonic war games are present in this game. One of the subtle differences, though, has to do with how combat is calculated and conducted. The random element for our combat is done with 2 6-sided dice. And the dice are, it's basically the sum of the results. So you can get anything from a 2 up to a 12. So there's 11 possible results. But for anyone who's played craps at Las Vegas, you know that the most common number that you're going to get, or the most likely number you're going to get, is 7. And so in this particular case, with how these die rolls are conducted, you're going to have a greater probability of getting rolls in the 6, 7, 8 range than you are out on the extreme ends of the die roll possibilities, 2s and 3s or 11 and 12s. The fire combat chart is familiar to most of us who have done a war game. There's a certain number of fire strength points that are going to be used by the person who is taking the shot, and these are based on the strength points, maybe a multiplier based on whether the unit is in line or column, if it's artillery and what the range might be, and then there might be modifications to the die roll based on the weather, what type of target it is, what type of fire it might be happening, or what formation the target unit is in. Then the results are applied. The assault process is slightly different. In this case, you're looking to see if the defending unit will hold its ground. In this particular case, the attacker is going to make a roll, and if the die roll result is a 9 or more, the defender holds the position and the attacker is going to lose a strength point. If the modified die result is an 8, both parties take a strength point loss, and if the roll is a 7 or less, the defending unit will lose strength points and have to retreat. The odds, that is the difference between the strength points of the attacking and defending unit, are going to provide die roll modifiers, as will then different situations that relate to the defending unit, it being elite, or it being on defend orders or hold orders. The assaulting unit then also has die roll modifiers based on its situation, attacking uphill or downhill, into an obstructed hex, etc. Once all the die roll modifiers have been tabulated and added up, you will then have either a plus value, a minus value, or it might come out to be 0, in which case it just boils down to what you roll. Another important mechanic in this game is the idea of units standing. This would be a case where, say, a neighboring unit has their friend or colleague next to them, either forced to retreat or might be eliminated due to some combat event. As a result of that, they then have to make a stand check. If they pass, they stay where they're at. If they fail, then they have to lose a strength point and retreat. So this can be problematic if you have a line of units. One getting knocked out in the center could cause the neighbor on either side to potentially fail and then open up a gap in the line. Finally, on the larger sort of grand scale of things, we have the Army fatigue points. This is where you as the commander are spending Army fatigue points for the various orders that you're issuing, but you can also then lose fatigue points as units are eliminated from the map. So if a battalion or a regiment or a battery is destroyed and eliminated from the map, you then lose a fatigue point for that. If leaders are killed or wounded and removed from the map, you will lose points for that as well. If a objective on the map, say a town or a building or some other location, is captured, the fatigue points that are the value of that particular location are going to be taken from your reserve and given to your opponent. If you recapture that location, they'll take those points from their reserve and give it back to you. If a side ever runs out of fatigue points, they will have lost the game. If at the end of the scenario no one has achieved victory, the side that has the most fatigue points remaining will be the victor. Now, I've had the chance to play the game several times, both face-to-face and over online vassal types of situations. And I can say that with the new rules, it's a very good game. It's a very playable game. It does a good job capturing the decision-making that you're going to need to do on a tactical scale, as well as sort of a larger grand tactical scale. And so that's what makes it fun and interesting. For those that are new to Napoleonic era battles, this is a good one. It's fairly balanced between the French and the Russian players, and it gives lots of opportunities for players to try different types of situations, defenses, etc. The number of orders that are out there that are available have some very subtle differences. And so I am sort of experimenting and playing with those and kind of getting used to how that works. That's going to take a little bit of time to master, but the fact that you have different options is very nice, and it does add another element to the game. Altogether, with the cube pull system and the order system, I find that the game itself goes along fairly well. The combat has been simplified, so that tends to be pretty simple with the calculations and the results. So that tends to move along fairly quickly too. Altogether, I like the game. It has lovely components. The rules that are out now make it a playable game. It's easy to learn, it's easy to play, and I think that's what the game designer was trying to achieve. And I think finally with this set of rules, they've reached a good balance in that. If you're interested in finding out more about the game designer and what his thoughts were, I interviewed him back a while ago, and so you can watch, I'll post somewhere here the video, and you can then take a look at that and watch the interview. If you are interested, I am doing every week a live stream of scenarios from this on Thursday mornings, and I will have a link somewhere around here for that playlist, and you can watch past episodes or tune in for future episodes. If you have any questions or comments, go ahead and leave those below. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and until our next episode, be well.